All right, so we're solving another problem. We're going to look and see if we have repeating or terminating decimals. Let's look at our fractions first. This is a terminating decimal, right? And then we have over here our 14, 15. So I'm just looking at the decimal portion only. So 14, 15. So it is a repeating decimal. So I am going to use the fraction form. So to do that, remember we want to look at our decimal amount only. So I'm going to look at this. I have 4 and my place value is tenths, right? So 4 tenths. And then I know that I can divide both my numerator and denominator by 2. By doing that, 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So the fractional form of 4.4 is going to be 4 and 2/5. And don't forget that negative sign that we had that we started with. So we are going to divide by negative 2 and 14/15. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is convert these to improper fractions. So remember Texas. So let's look and see what we've got there. So the abbreviations for Texas. And remember, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top. All right. So what we have is 5 times 4. That gives me 20. 20 plus 2 gives me 22. So that's 22/5. And remember to keep that negative sign that we had. And we're going to divide that by 15 times 2. That gives me 30. 30 plus 14 gives me 30, 44 fifteenths. And again, don't forget that negative sign that we had here. Okay. All right. And so now we're going to use our keep it, switch it, flip it, multiply across method for us to get rid of the division of the fraction. So keep it, switch it, flip it, multiply across. All right. So we have negative 22/5. We're going to keep that. We're going to switch our operation to its inverse, which is going to be multiplication. And now we're going to flip our second fraction, which is going to be, instead of 44 over 15, it's going to be 15 over 44. And don't forget that negative sign. And now we just need to multiply across. But before we multiply across, let's see if we have any common factors. And the reason for that is, imagine, let's just solve this real quick the way that it is. Let's say we have 22 times 15. 22 times 15. That gives me 330. And then we have 44 times 5. So 44 times 5. So you have over 220. Now look at this. I mean, now you have to see, can you simplify this? And so to me, that's just a lot of work that needs to be done. So let's look at that and see 330 over 220. Now let's look and see what happens if we find a common factor that we can divide them by. So let's look at this. I see 15 and I see 5. So I know that they are both divisible by 5. So let me cross that out. So I'm going to cross this out and cross that out. 15 divided by 5 gives me 3. So that's 3. And then 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. So that becomes 1. Now, on the other side, we also have 22 and 44. They're double numbers. And so they look like maybe 11s, right? So I'm going to cross those out. And what do we have? We have 22 divided by 11 gives me 2. And 44 divided by 11 gives me 4. Okay, so now let's multiply across and see what happens now that we've divided by a common factor. Now we have 2 times 3, that gives me 6. And then we have 1 times 4, that gives me 4. Oh, actually, give me 1 second. Let me see what I did. Yeah, no, I got it. Okay. Well, actually, look at this. I said by 11s, but I still see that I could actually divide again. So let me change this. So let me change that. I was looking at it. I'm like, something doesn't look right. Actually, I could divide both of them by 22. So I could say 22 divided by 22. That gives me 1. And then I have 44 divided by 22. That gives me 2. There we go. That looks a lot better. Because you don't want to have to simplify and then have to simplify again. All right, so now what do we have? We have 1 times 3, that gives me 3. 1 times 2, that gives me 2. And now let's look at our signs. We had a negative and a negative. So negative times a negative gives me a positive. So now look at what we have. We have 3 halves. It's in its simplest form. So really the only thing that we have to do is convert it back to its mixed number, right? So our denominator should always be larger than your numerator. So what I'm going to do is, how many groups of 2 can I pull out of 3? Well, I can pull out 1. And I know that 2 times 1 gives me 2. 2 plus 1 more would give me the 3. So my answer is going to be 1 and 1/2. Now, doesn't that look a lot easier? This is our answer, by the way. But doesn't that look a lot easier than us looking at 330 over 220 and trying to see about simplifying? I mean, to me, that would just be so much work that needs to be done. So that's the reason that we do it before we start to solve, and trying to see if there's any common factors. To use your calculator, the way that you would do it, remember you can plug in this information here. So 4.4, remember that's negative. So don't forget to hit that negative sign. And we're going to divide that by 2, ABC 14, ABC 15, and that's a negative as well. And you see that the answer is 1.5. That's the same thing as 1 and 1/2 or 1.5. Either way, it is the same answer.